Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN Sports Philosophy 101, Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here as always with Casey, Vlad to the Bone, Scheinvold, and Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, Ross the Boss, live from La, California. That means Hollywood, California. Not really Hollywood, Tarzana, but close enough. And yes, July 3rd, day before Thanksgiving, day before July 4th.
Well, we give thanks for independence.
That's true. That's true. And we are talking about legacies today. So obviously July 4th is the legacy of the country, part of the legacy of the country. Today, I want to talk about why we're even doing this today. We're talking about the toughest legacies in sports. And one of the reasons this came to mind for me is there was I think it was on ESPN, but there was a show called Catching Hell. And it was about people who are just tortured in sports because of what happened on the field of play. And it got me to thinking about who has had it the hardest? And there's one that's very clear to me, but there's some really solid nominees otherwise. And you could even argue some of these are even stronger than this. I'm not going to say who's my number one yet. I want to just let's get a couple of nominees. Let's start with some fringe nominees that maybe people don't think about so much, that are, either athletes or sometimes it's fans that did something that they'll always be remembered for. And it's a lot of times it's the thing that they are going to be remembered for the rest of their life more than anything else. So Ross, I'm going to start with you. Who's on your mind? A player or fan that is just infamous for something that happened?
Bartman. Bartman.
Oh, Steve Bartman. I felt so bad
for
him.
Bartman. Just
did what anybody else would have done.
Yeah, I mean, Cubs playoff game. He decides to lean over and try to catch a ball that could have been caught. Would have been caught.
It was in foul territory, of course, which is the only place fans can be. But
he reached over and Alou, was it Alou? Who was the
Moises Alou?
Moises Alou, in memory. I'm just doing this off memory. And he was actually, after that happened, he was like hated in Chicago. He moved to Florida.
I thought he moved to London.
Was it London?
I think it was London.
Florida, but
let's Google that.
You never heard the guy ever. I mean, the guy was like infamous in sports history for just being the guy that ruined Chicago Cub history, basically.
Yeah.
And I always felt bad. Oh, this says that he still lives in the Chicago suburbs, but he moved away for a time. I know he did.
He had to, yeah.
He got
there was a documentary about him.
It was not good. But I'll say Barton first, just because, it's just so famous and people still talk about it.
Well, I do think
I
it's
was looking
the roughest thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Fringe ones. You had said fringe ones, so I was thinking ones that weren't in my top 5 that people don't often think about. There's 2, actually, there's 3 that come to mind. One is Leon Lett, because it happened not once, but twice. There was the premature celebration when he was running back for a touchdown when Don Beebe ran him down from behind, and then there was the Snow Bowl game where the Dolphins missed the field goal, and he decided, or they muffed it. He decided to go down and touch it and give the Dolphins that one. And while I don't think this defines him because he went on to have a successful NBA career, Chris Webber's timeout in the championship game against Carolina for Michigan is another big one that had the risk. And then you said a fan or a player. I'm going to go a little bit different. What was it? What year was that? 2010, maybe?
Okay.
Armando Galarraga's perfect game that was taken away because Jim Joyce called the runner safe at first on the last play of the game. Do you remember?
Oh, right.
And he was out by like 4 feet or 3 feet, but they didn't have instant replay yet. So Galarraga missed the chance to have his perfect game. And Jim Joyce is 100% responsible for it because he actually had the perfect game.
This was Armando Galarraga. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Was it Andres Galarraga?
Andres Galarraga. Big Cat didn't do that.
That'd be a problem if he was pitching. Yeah. I remember that too. That was infamous. That's a good one.
And you just see this.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, at least the umpire was just doing his job, though. Bartman, I felt so bad for because he's just a fan. He
did what everybody else would do in that situation.
He woke up, he went to a game, he tried to catch a foul ball, and suddenly he was the most reviled person in Chicago history. Like, can you imagine that?
Yeah. No. I mean, now in the less popular sports, you know, baseball, football, basketball, the big three. What about if you go to, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I'm a huge soccer fan, and there's two very, very infamous moments in soccer. One is the 1994 World Cup.
I thought about this one, Andres Escobar. Yes.
No, there's two. I was that one too. Andres Escobar is the Colombian defender who ricocheted a ball off his own foot into the own goal, and they ended up not advancing to the group stage. It actually ended up getting him killed. So that makes it incredibly tragic.
That puts it pretty high up the list.
Yeah, but Roberto Baggio in the 94 World Cup, arguably the best player in the world at that time for Italy. The final it was Italy-Brazil. It's tied going into PKs. They're down 3-2, and he's the last PK, and he won the golden ball, which meant he scored the most, or the silver ball, which meant he scored the most goals in the World Cup. He lines up to take his PK and puts it over the bar, and they end up losing. And he admitted, there's a documentary about him, that he admitted it, like for 7 or 8 years, he couldn't sleep because of it. Like he just couldn't get over it.
These are very, very hard moments for these people, and they're kind of shamed and humiliated on a big stage. And the Chris Webber one, that was a big one. I mean, calling a timeout when they didn't have a timeout. And I think about like Leon Lett, probably easier just because the Cowboys won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years or something like that. He could probably get over that.
Yeah, but the Leon Lett thing, I remember this really well because I was at a Thanksgiving event and all Cowboy fans except me. And the guy I was with, like, we were at the table and the guy said, "Okay, let's eat," thinking they won. And all of a sudden, like, Leon Lett runs, touches the ball goes flying, and Cowboys lose the game basically. After they thought they won, they lost.
Now you're right, Dan.
The timing, it was so perfect that we were just sitting down to eat, all Cowboys fans and me, and it was just like just the arrogance of these guys was so high. And
neither of them
see them start crying and not enjoying their Thanksgiving. It was the best. It was the best Thanksgiving I ever had.
To Leon Lett's benefit, like neither of those plays cost them a championship. They were up so much against the Bills with the Don Beebe one, and the other one was the Thanksgiving Day. How about let's bring up your Cleveland Cavaliers? How about J.R. Smith?
Please, no.
When he forgot that they were tied with 5 seconds left when he got the rebound.
I definitely remember it.
And he just held on to the ball, and they ended up losing
like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
I loved it.
It's another one of those just boneheaded plays where it comes back to bite you hard.
Yeah, and like, so I made a list of this, and the ones that like stand out most, it's really interesting because winning really does undo a lot of this. Even I really think it's many people would argue that Bill Buckner is the #1 player we should.
Yeah, but let me just correct Bill Buckner really quick, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Leon Lett thing was a mental problem. I mean, a lot of these things are mental mistakes. Buckner wasn't a mental thing. It was just the ball took a weird hop on him.
It took a weird hop, and he had bad knees. The sad
thing is, he was a great defensive first baseman, and he won Gold Gloves there. And it goes down in history of like making that error and losing the game. Basically, I actually have a photo that's framed with Mookie Wilson and Buckner with the picture of them in the same pick, and they signed it for me. Both of them signed it.
Oh my God. Wow.
That's pretty awesome. But if you're bringing that up, look at Steve Bartman. I mean, he gets blamed, but wasn't it like the next play, the Chicago Cubs shortstop blew a ground ball right to him and like threw it away, which led to them losing the game? Like,
it doesn't matter. This guy's name's Steve Bartman. He looked like he played the role.
It's all the context, and it's all about what people imagine what happened.
Like Waldo.
And look, Bill Buckner, I almost called him Bill Bartman. Bill Buckner, one of the reasons that was so big, obviously, was the Red Sox curse. It had gone on for so long. Yeah. There they are. Yeah. It's all in the context. Because, like, the 97 World Series, Tony Fernandez did basically the same thing that Buckner did.
Yeah.
It didn't win the game on that play.
That's
Taylor. One of the differences. Yes. And everybody talks about how Jose Mesa blew it, but he walked the leadoff runner, got a ground ball to Tony Fernandez. Should have been a double play ball. Instead, First and third, no outs.
Well, that's what happened with the Bartman play. The next batter hit a ground ball to Alex Gonzalez, who booted the double play ball. That would have gotten him out of the inning without giving up a run.
So here's a question. When the Cubs won the World Series in 2016 against my Cleveland Indians at the time, how much does that alleviate the pain of Steve Bartman? Boston.
You'd have to ask him. I would think it does, but
it's got to some. But the question is how the fans treated. Bill Buckner was actually brought back to Fenway Park, and they gave him a standing ovation. And I just kind of rolled my eyes at that. I was like, "Give me a break! You guys gave this guy."
He couldn't go outside for years. I mean,
there's like death threats everywhere he went.
Yeah. I mean,
it was bad for Buckner. I remember the fans, everybody hated him in Boston for years.
Yep.
I mean, it was a bad situation, and I'm pretty sure he didn't live there.
I don't think there'd be any way that he could.
Yeah, he passed away a while ago, I think, and he moved to I want to say Texas or something, or
Montana or something. Yeah, it was somewhere where he had a.
He would have been loved in the Bronx. He should have moved there.
Love for the wrong reasons. It would be hard, but I do think winning makes a big difference. So here's another guy that is brought up, and this franchise is now on. And by the way, I'm wearing a Buffalo Bills shirt in honor of this.
Is that your new team for this football season? Can we announce right now
that who's my team?
Your team is going to be the Buffalo Bills. Yes,
I can't do that to them again. I rooted for them. They went down in flames. That's
why I wanted you to do it again this year.
Listen, okay.
He's going to be a Washington Commanders fan.
No. But I will say I feel bad for this because I'm sorry, Lions fans, but I want the Lions to win the Super Bowl, and they're not going to because I just said that. So I'm sorry, but I did that for you, Ross. I finally chose. But Scott Norwood,
pick the Bears.
Scott Norwood. We all know it was the first time the Bills were in the Super Bowl out of the 4 in a row, and he had a 47-yard field goal, which is not necessarily easy to hit, especially not in those circumstances. I mean, that's impossible for me to hit, and he hit it wide right, and he's got to live with that for the rest of his life. It's so tough, and I feel bad for these guys.
Go ahead. We talk about Scott Norwood, right, but Florida State was just as infamous for that. The 91 game against the Hurricanes, they missed wide right. Then the 92 game against the Hurricanes, they missed wide right. And then again, there was number 3. What was it? I think a third time they did it. And each time it was a loss to Miami.
I love that Bobby Bowden. Remember, I mean, he was the coach of Florida State at the time. And I love his reaction when he missed it. I mean, it was like, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. It was that good. And kids would make signs that said wide right. That's all it said. And we all knew what they were talking about. You know what I mean? It was great.
And there's 2 things that erase these legacies: winning, and further losing.
And
because
death. I think you're going to say death.
Well, no, that just makes it even worse, as we know. The not only with the soccer players, but Donnie Moore. You guys remember Donnie Moore?
Yeah, he shot himself, right?
He gave up that home run to Dave Henderson in the ALCS same year as Bill Buckner. And unfortunately committed suicide because he could not take how bad he felt about it. It's just an awful thing. So, but the 2 things that actually do kind of erase it, I think, are winning can take away a lot of the sting of it, but so can when somebody else loses in the same way. Casey, your Yankees did this for my team. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We had Edgar Renteria with the hit that won the World Series after we had been up heading into the bottom of the ninth. It's like the same exact thing.
Yeah.
It was 4 years later, but at the time, the Cleveland Indians teams going into the bottom of the ninth winning were 99-0 before that.
Yeah.
That's a stat that hurts. And then 4 years later, the Yankees did it as well. And I was like, whew.
Well, the Yankees were also the first then against the Red Sox to be up 3-0 in the ALCS and blow it.
Yep. Right. And so they're, I'm sure, patiently waiting for when that happens to somebody else, and they're off the hook as the only team that has ever done it. Hopefully for them, they won't do it themselves again. Who else did we miss? I
have more obscure ones, but the 1999 British Open, John Van de Velde had a 3-shot lead going into the last hole, and all he needed to do was get a 6, and he took like a 7 or an 8. He drove it into the water, couldn't get his next shot out, ended up taking a triple bogey and lost, having a 3-shot lead. You know,
And
you got
there's so much pressure on these guys at those times. You understand how it can happen.
I could have took my wedge and got a 5 or 4.
well, that's
you know
the
what I mean?
thing.
It's
Like
whatever.
Well, I would not have been able to, but more power to you, Ross.
how about the Olympics? Lindsay Jacobellis or Jacobellis, the snowboarder. Do you remember that from 2006?
Remind me.
Tell us.
She was winning, like she was about to win the gold medal and decided to put some flare up on her last jump and grab her snowboard as she got in the air and ended up falling and couldn't recover and came in second.
Oh.
And never won a gold again after that.
The Olympics are tough for that too, because like when you watch figure skating, for example, like one mistake and they're done. But you know, that's at least in that sport, it's known for that. Whereas here's one we didn't bring up. Nick Anderson. You remember the 4 missed free throws?
Yes.
The Orlando Magic were playing.
Missed 2, got the rebound on the second missed free throw and got fouled, and then missed 2 more.
Yeah. And it was the Orlando Magic against the Houston Rockets, right? In the finals. And the Magic had just gotten there for the first time with Penny Hardaway,
Shaq.
And he missed 4 free throws in a row. And you could just see on his face, he just couldn't believe it was happening. So there's also Jeffrey Mayer.
Yeah. Now I like that one.
Yeah, right. Well, that was a Yankees home run that the Orioles were complaining about because if you look, Jeffrey Mayer sweeps it over. So that's interesting because like
who
Jeffrey
was the
Mayer,
outfielder? Do you remember the outfielder?
Was his name Tarasco?
Tony Tarasco.
Wow.
And he just points. He's like pointing straight
he's
up.
like, and you see, when you watch the replay. So that's one where he's infamous, hated in a different city.
Yeah, but that was a good thing for the Yankee fans.
Right. He was loved in the city where it happened.
He was like a hero. The kid's like grown up now. And he's still he's like a hero still in New York.
I'm going to add one more. This is a Cleveland sports moment, and I wonder how big it is for
Biner.
Ernest Biner, the fumble. Ernest Biner actually wrote a book called
Everybody
What about
Mark
Fumbles.
Sanchez's butt fumble?
I don't even remember it that well. What happened?
It's a famous.
I remember that it happened, but
he went to hand it off. The running back wasn't there, so he quickly tried to turn around and run, and ran into the butt of his offensive lineman and dropped the ball, and they ended up losing the game.
But what were the circumstances? That's the key. Because Ernest Biner, that was in the AFC Championship, about to go in to tie up the score.
I think it was a big
year
moment.
after the drive.
I mean,
you also have Tony Romo.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tony Romo muffing the field goal hold to win a playoff game. They still haven't won a playoff game. What about the USSR getting 3 redos on the last play of the game to get the gold medal against the United States in basketball?
Yeah, against Bobby Knight. That was unbelievable. Bobby Knight went nuts. I remember that. Remember
one of the rare times Bobby Knight lost it.
Never.
In the Super Bowl. So I'd like to talk about like big, huge games. Like that one was good, Casey. Remember Pete Carroll when he decided not to hand the ball off and throw the pass?
Oh, Russell Wilson. But again, that's where winning erases it, right? Like because the Seahawks were so successful even after that.
Well, also they had won the year before, but it is true. That is one of the biggest bonehead moments in
and you had
sports history.
The running back of all running backs. Like
Marshawn Lynch
was a beast.
That was
there's also
bad.
Let's see, what else is there? The Miracle at the Meadowlands. Let's bring the Giants into it. Joe Pisarcuk fumbling and Herm Edwards picking it up and returning it to the Eagles win.
You play to win the game.
Or you have the Deshaun Jackson punt return where he like ran for 38 seconds to run out the clock because the Giants couldn't tackle him as he's just going back and forth along the
Deshaun Jackson's the greatest.
There are so many moments like this. We're going to need to wrap up in a second, but just to add some comic relief, do you guys remember when Carl Lewis sang the national anthem?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and Roseanne Barr. I remember that also.
That's true, but Roseanne, she chose to botch it. Carl Lewis, I feel bad for him because he meant to sing it normally.
He thought he was kicking it.
He did an album. He did like a musical album.
He thought he was killing it.
He can sing, but then he just lost the pitch, and he was like, poor guy.
That wasn't good.
Luckily, he had won a lot of gold medals, and it's more of an embarrassing moment than anything else. Yeah. But for the people like Bill Buckner or Scott Norwood or Donnie Moore, or Steve Bartman, whose lives were really ruined by this. Wow.
Was it Bonnie Blair? Who was the speed skater that fell like every time? There was the male American speed skater who fell like in the finals, like
Bonnie
3
Blair was a
Olympics
woman
in a
and she
row.
won gold. So she's fine.
That's Bonnie Blair. No, the male speed skater.
Hayden? No, it wasn't Eric Hayden. It was I know who you're talking about.
He won gold also.
Yeah.
We'll have to look this one up. But let's do this, guys. I want to hear from
Dan
the MFSN.
Jansen.
Oh, Dan Jansen, that's right.
I would never.
And he went on to be a catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. No, that's not true. That's a different Dan Jansen. All right. I want to hear from you guys, from MFSN fans. What did we miss? What of the ones that we talked about really is the toughest legacy that any of these players have had to deal with, or fans, or umpires, or whoever? We want to hear from you. So put your comments below. Ross and Casey, thanks for joining us here today. Always fun talking sports with you. I just love how much the world of sports has so much in it. Loved getting to talk about this. Thank you, guys.